Hello and welcome to the JSA studio. I'm host as always, Nathan, and today I'm coming at you with my week 13 predictions for the Big Ten. We're going to go team by team and pick a winner for every single game. But before we get into that, it is at this point I am going to ask you to like, comment, and subscribe. It would really help me out and the channel if you did. But now with the intro done and out of the way, there's only one thing left to do, and that is to get started by starting with Rutgers at Ohio State. And, yeah, there's not a whole lot to talk about with this one here. They're just, I mean, it's a glorified bye week for Ohio State heading into the game. Rutgers is a quality team. They're going to have a chance in rivalry week to end up as bowl eligible, but Ohio State is 32.5-point favorite, which I believe is the biggest margin in Big Ten conference play this year, at least so far, but I'm not sure there's going to be a bigger margin next week. Over under 55.5. I mean, there's not a whole lot of analysts or analyzing going on in this video. Oregon's overmatched. We already know this. Ohio State's going to roll into the game. They'll be 11-0 for like the 100th time in the past 15 years heading into the game. I have Rutgers 17, Ohio State 42 as the final score, though, so I do think this is going to be a blowout for Ohio State. I imagine they pulled their starters earlier than maybe anticipated, so they might not get to 42, but that is what I'm predicting. Next game is Minnesota at Northwestern. A Northwestern minus 3.5-point line surprised me a little bit. I thought Minnesota was going to be favored in this game. However, looking at the stats for these teams, I understand why Northwestern is, in fact, the favorite, and we're going to get into that right now. Minnesota, a 39.5 over-under, so very low-scoring game, which it aligns kind of with what I'm predicting, maybe a little bit more than 39, but right around 40 points. Minnesota is ranked in opponent-adjusted scoring offense, 107th in the Big Ten. Opponent-adjusted total yards, 116th. All of these stats that I'm going to be listing off are opponent-adjusted, meaning that they are based upon relative performances. It takes into account how good the teams that you are playing against are, and then takes that into account when coming into the rankings and ranks teams that are playing harder defenses offensively and still perform well better than they would be just in the normal numbers in terms of like total yards and stuff like that. Anyway, Minnesota 58th in passing yards per game, 118th in passing yards per attempt, 129th in rushing yards per game and rushing yards per attempt. Oh, but don't worry, they make it up defensively, except they don't really. Scoring defense, 59th. Total defense, 59th. Passing defense per game, 81st. Passing defense per attempt, 98th. Rush defense per game, 43rd. And rush defense per attempt, 37th. So they've got a pretty good run defense. But honestly, a pass defense that is not all that great, and the defense is barely above average. There's 136 teams in college football. Being ranked 59th, that would put you, just above average. That's not an exceptional defense by any means. Meanwhile, Northwestern, opponent-adjusted stats here for them as well. Scoring offense, 105th. Total yards, 98th. Passing yards per game, 112th. Passing yards per attempt, 120th. Rushing yards per game, 57th. Rushing yards per attempt, 51st. But do they make up for it defensively? Yeah, they're a little bit better than Minnesota across the board defensively. Total defense, they are 41st. I skipped over scoring defense, they're 25th. Total defense, they're 41st. Passing defense per game, they're 39th. Passing defense per attempt, they are 55th. Rush defense per game, 51st. Rush defense per attempt, 53rd. So when you look at the matchups for this game, it appears in just about everywhere. Northwestern is just slightly better than Minnesota. And I got to be honest with you, rattling off those stats for Minnesota, how the fuck are they 6-4? Like, genuinely, how are they winning games? I don't understand it. They got a decent chance, a really, honestly, a pretty good chance, ending the season 8-4 if they win this week. With, I believe, their best stats were slightly above average. Their best stat was rush defense per attempt, which was 37th. That's actually good, but you get the point. They're not an elite defense. I guess you could quantify them as a good defense in totality, but their offense is abysmal. And Northwestern is a legitimately good defense and a slightly better offense. But Minnesota keeps winning. And that's the interesting thing, to me, at least. And because of that, I'm going to pick Minnesota very unconfidently. But I am going to take Minnesota in this game because they keep winning despite having no reason to win. So I've got Minnesota 21, Northwestern 20. That is my official prediction for this game. Up next, we have the biggest game in all of college football this week, USC at Oregon. Oregon is, in fact, a 10.5-point favorite in this game, which was a surprising line to me when it first came out. I thought this was going to be closer than 10.5 points. By the way, I'm recording this on Thursday, so it might have moved a little bit, but I don't care. The over-under is 59.5. But what's really interesting in this game is the degree in which we are going to see offensive football played, okay? Because USC has the number 3 opponent-adjusted scoring offense, the number 1, numero uno. I have my phone with my notes on it in my left hand. That's why I can't use my left hand. But numero uno, the number 1 total offense in opponent-adjusted metrics. 3rd in passing yards per game, 2nd in passing yards per attempt, 23rd in rushing yards per game, 8th in rushing yards per attempt. Meanwhile, Oregon, offensively, 6th in scoring offense, 3rd in total yards, 35th in passing yards per game, 21st in passing yards per attempt, 6th in rushing yards per game, 2nd in rushing yards per attempt. So, 2, without a shadow of a doubt, elite offenses. USC probably just barely edges out Oregon on terms of the offense because USC's passing offense is relatively significantly going from the low 20s to literally the top 3 is a relatively significant difference. That's from like borderline great to without a doubt elite. All right. And Oregon's rushing defense or rushing offense is about the same compared to USC's rushing offense. But the average pass goes for more yards than the average run. So I kind of, when I'm dealing with offenses, tend to lean more towards the passing game as sort of a tiebreaker. So if we're matching up offenses, I would say just barely USC edges out Oregon in that category. But when we look at defensively, this starts to become a little bit more clear in terms of how this matchup is going to go and also how Vegas got to that line, in my opinion, at least. USC defensively, they are 31st in scoring defense, which is way better than I thought they were going to be. They are 43rd in total defense, 36th in passing defense per game, 43rd in passing defense per attempt, 60th in rushing defense per game, and 76th in rushing defense per attempt. So they're just barely a below average rush defense. And again, you compare that to Oregon's offense, where they are 2nd in the country in yards per carry, opponent-adjusted yards per carry. That is the mismatch that's going to define this game, in my opinion. Oregon defensively, they are 10th in scoring defense, 4th in total D, numero uno, number 1 in the entire country in passing defense per game, number 4 in passing defense per attempt, 23rd in rushing defense per attempt, and 26th in rushing defense, or 23rd and 20 in rushing defense per game, 26th in rushing defense per attempt. So when you look at this game, USC has maybe, it's either them or Indiana if you want to get down to it, maybe the best and most efficient passing offense in all of college football. Oregon has, statistically, the best passing defense in college football and probably a top 7 or 8 defense overall. This is a elite matchup between two very, very good teams. If USC didn't lose to Illinois in spectacular fashion, when Illinois punched way above their weight class in that game, by the way, that's one of the more perplexing losses of the season for anybody. But that game's going to come back to haunt Lincoln Riley, maybe for his entire career. But yeah, this is that was a very insane loss. But USC, if they finish the season 10-2, are probably in the playoffs. I imagine USC just takes Oregon's spots in the playoffs if they end up winning this game. However, when I lay out the stats before you, USC's defense, specifically in the run game, is slightly below average. And Oregon, as much as we like to talk about Dante Moore, who I think if he goes out is firmly in the number 1 overall pick conversation at the quarterback position, I don't know if he goes out or not. Genuinely, there are a lot of people in the NFL with sources that I respect that are talking about Dante Moore more likely than not returning to school in 2026. So take that with a grain of salt. But I love Dante Moore, and it's not just because he's from Detroit, although that's a large reason of it. But he's incredibly efficient. Also, I really like USC's quarterback, whose name I'm blanking on right now, but he's really, really good too, and he might end up in first-round conversations either this year or next year if he decides to return to USC. Jaden Mayava is his name, but if he ends up doing what I think he could potentially do next year if he comes back, boy, oh boy, that could be a very, very interesting 2027 draft class at the quarterback position. There's like 40 guys that could end up in the first round conversation in 2027. There's a lot of quarterbacks. In fact, we're going to talk about one of them on Wednesday. We're going to do a breakdown of a 2027 draft class quarterback on Wednesday. But all things considered, as far as how this game is going to go, Oregon's ability to run the ball and the fact that they can just do play action and Dante Moore isn't going to turn the ball over and he's going to be accurate. This game is going to be incredibly high scoring in my opinion. But when it comes down to it, I have a hard time thinking USC is quite there yet. They've taken a massive step in the right direction this year, and they currently have, very unlikely to be supplanted in my opinion, the number 1 recruiting class in the country. I don't think that's going to get supplanted. It might. There are a couple of schools that are close to passing them, but there's a very real chance USC ends with the number 1 recruiting class in the nation and the ability to go out and get just about anybody in the transfer portal that they want. Cough, Ryan Williams, cough. But it is what it is. I have, in this game, I have Oregon winning. I have Oregon 41, USC 31. I just think they're going to be able to control the game with the running game. And even though USC is going to move the ball and put up points on the board, I just don't think they're going to be able to keep pace with Oregon in this game. I think Oregon's defense is going to make it just difficult enough offensively for USC to be unable to keep pace with Oregon. Up next is, in fact, MSU at Iowa. Another game not all that interesting. Iowa is just clearly a better team than Michigan State this year. I early on in the season, I thought MSU might have turned the corner, and I was predicting them to have a pretty solid season entering the year, but hasn't gone that way at all. I don't particularly think I was that high on Iowa heading into this year, but they've done pretty good for themselves. They lost some tough, close games that if they go a different way, they're firmly in the playoff conversation. As far as how this game matches up here, Michigan State is firmly middle of the road in just about everything. Scoring offense 77th, passing yards per attempt 60th. However, rushing offense is very, very bad for Michigan State. 104th in rushing yards per game, 110th in rushing yards per attempt. They also give up a lot of points. They're one of the worst defenses in football when it comes to points, 108th. Now, good for Michigan State here. Iowa's offense is abysmal. They are the number 30 scoring offense for some reason, but they have the 111th total offense. They have the 128th passing yards per game offense and 117th passing yards per attempt. That's horrible, horrendous. They can't pass the football if their life depended upon it. Now, rushing, they're actually good. 44th and 50th in yards per game and yards per attempt. Defensively, however, Iowa is, in fact, still Iowa. They are elite. 7th in scoring defense, 6th in total defense, 5th in passing yards per game, or passing defense per game, 18th in rushing defense per game. Michigan State is just overmatched in this game. Iowa is going to roll. Iowa is 16.5-point favorites for a reason. I have Iowa 30, Michigan State 21. Moving on now, we have the most important game of the weekend, in my opinion, because I'm a Michigan fan, of course. We have Michigan at Maryland. Maryland deciding correctly deciding not to fire Mike Locksley. They've got a really good recruiting class coming in. If they invest in the portal, this could be a quality team with an absolutely stud of a quarterback in Malik Washington. He's going to be fantastic. True freshman as well. This game itself is a battle of starting true freshman quarterbacks who have started from day one, both touted as saviors of the program. Michigan is a 13.5-point favorite, which I have no idea how Michigan could possibly be a 13.5-point favorite in this game. I have no idea, okay? But over under 47.5, so they don't think it's going to be a barn burner by any means here. Michigan hypothetically matches up well against Maryland, as Michigan has the number 31 scoring offense, 16th in total yards. They are 97th in passing yards per game, but they are 57th in passing yards per attempt, meaning, of course, that Michigan doesn't pass the ball as much as maybe they should, because their yards per attempt numbers are actually pretty solid. That is on the borderline of above average and good, potentially. If it was in the low 50s, maybe you could start talking about it being good. But 57th is, I think, way better than most people believe the Michigan passing offense to be. And it's struggled mightily with true freshman Bryce Underwood. But if he could put it all together, man, this team does not have a ceiling. Okay, we can blow through the ceiling if Bryce Underwood can put it all together. Rushing offense is 4th and 5th in yards per game and yards per attempt. So elite running game, which is going most of the work. Michigan actually has a good border. Now they have a great defense. 18th scoring defense, 19th total defense, 9th in passing defense per attempt, and 10th in rushing defense per attempt, even though their total yards per game are a little bit worse in both cases. That's actually 50th in passing defense per game. But the passing yards per attempt defensively is excellent. So they have, on an efficiency level, a elite defense. So Michigan defensively, pretty good. If you look at Maryland, you look at them, they're 38th in the country in passing yards per game, but they're 121st in passing yards per attempt. Okay. So, yeah, they're throwing a lot of screen passes. All right. I imagine if you filtered for passes caught between 0 and 1 yards downfield, I imagine Maryland's efficiency numbers in yards per attempt would skyrocket. It would probably be in the mid 40s, high 40s, maybe low 50s, worst case scenario. Michigan or Maryland can pass the football, okay? And Michigan, again, very good defensively, but they do tend to give up a little bit of yardage in the air pretty much every game. However, defensively for Maryland, they're 56th scoring defense, 108th total defense. The big one, 123rd in rushing defense per game, 103rd in rushing defense per attempt. So that's the matchup for Michigan. If Jordan Marshall goes, Michigan probably covers, okay? I don't think Jordan Marshall is going to go. We're getting media reports about Max Bredesen getting run at tailback. Yeah, sorry, dog. I don't think Jordan Marshall is going to go this week. I think they're going to try to have him go for Ohio State, and we'll see how that goes. Shoulder injuries are tricky, but Michigan's down to their last two running backs, Brian Kuzdal and Jasper Parker, the true freshman. So, not ideal. All things considered, I do have Michigan winning this game. Just barely. Just barely, though. I have Michigan 24, Maryland 21. Michigan does not cover. I don't think they even get close to covering unless Jordan Marshall plays. Next game up on the docket here, Nebraska at Penn State. Penn State is a 7.5-point favorite in this game. That's crazy to me. I get that Nebraska lost Dylan Raiola, but there honestly wasn't that big of a drop-off offensively for this team. But 7.5-point favorites for Penn State, that seems crazy to me. But when we dig into the numbers, maybe it's not as crazy as it originally seemed. Over-under set at 45.5. When we look at Nebraska offensively, okay, again, the majority of these stats are with Dylan Raiola at the quarterback. They are 49th in passing yards per game and 38th in passing yards per attempt. So pretty good passing offense, a good passing offense. And they're 93rd in rushing yards per game and 95th in rushing yards per attempt. Again, opponent-adjusted numbers. I only ever use opponent-adjusted numbers because why wouldn't you? Anyway, so rushing defense below average to bad. And passing offense, good. Pretty good. That's kind of the story of Nebraska right now. Dylan Raiola did take a big step forward. Now, he may not be with the program next year, but, that's neither here nor there. All things considered, they look pretty solid in the passing game, even without Dylan Raiola. So, Penn State has had some problems defensively. If we look at Penn State defensively, passing defense per game 28th, passing defense per attempt 36th. So, again, a good passing defense, but good offense beats good defense, generally speaking. So, does that matchup favor Penn State? I don't think it does, really. And Penn State has some problems offensively as well. They're 92nd in passing yards per game. Now, efficiency-wise, they're a little bit better at 66 passing yards per game. But Nebraska has the third passing defense per game in all of college football and the sixth passing defense per attempt. Now, Nebraska's run defense is bad. Very bad, even. So it's kind of a little bit here or there. So when you look at this game and the way it may end up going down, it may just come down to the fact that Penn State is probably going to be able to run the ball fairly effectively. And because of that, they'll almost certainly be able to control the pace of the game. I still think 7.5 is way too much of a line, but I see, looking at the numbers, why Penn State is favored heavily in this game. I have Penn State winning 27-24 in this game, but I'm not very confident in it. I feel like Nebraska could very easily win in this game, and it'd be a big win for Matt Rule if you were able to get this, because I believe that would put them at 7 wins with a chance to go to 8, although they might already have 7 wins. They might be 7-3. I don't know off the top of my head. It is 1:30 in the morning because I work late at night, so I recorded this after I come home from work. But anyway, I've got Penn State winning this game. I think it's close, though. That's kind of the general thing I'm going to end this section on. Illinois at Wisconsin is the next game up here on the docket. Illinois is an 8.5-point favorite, which is batshit insane to me. It should be twice that. I mean, I'm going to get into it, but 8.5 is an incredibly low number. Okay? Now, maybe Vegas knows something I don't know. They're very good at this. Okay? But I think that line is preposterous. All right? Over under 41.5, that's low too, but that doesn't matter as much. 8.5 is a number that I just cannot wrap my mind around it. When we get into the numbers, Illinois, number 15 opponent adjusted scoring offense. So they're going to be able to put up points. They are 24th in passing yards per game opponent adjusted and 19th in opponent adjusted passing yards per attempt. Okay? They struggle to run the ball, but I don't care about that. Wisconsin defensively, 61st passing yards per game, 64th passing yards per attempt. So Illinois has a very good, borderline great passing offense, and Wisconsin has an above average passing defense. Yeah, sorry, that's an incredible mismatch. I don't care that Wisconsin has a good to great run defense and Illinois can't run the ball a lick. I don't care. It's irrelevant. Illinois is going to be able to get everything they want in the passing game in this game, or at least they should. All right. I don't really see much of a way where Wisconsin's going to do anything offensively against Illinois. Illinois, a above average to good defense, and in a lot of the efficiency metrics, they're actually a solidly good defense. And Wisconsin offensively is trash. So I don't think Wisconsin's going to be able to score or even move the ball all that consistently. And I think Illinois is going to be able to get damn near everything they want in the passing game. So because of that, I have Illinois winning comfortably. I have Illinois 31, Wisconsin 13. I don't think this is going to be a particularly close game. I think Illinois is clearly a better team, and I think they're also a bad matchup for Wisconsin. And we have our final Big Ten matchup here. Washington headed down to the Rose Bowl to play UCLA. Washington is a 10.5-point favorite. The over-under for this game is 51.5. And much like Illinois versus Wisconsin, I have no idea why this is a 10.5-point line, okay? Washington's offense doesn't travel very well. All of their worst games this year has been on the road. However, they've also played quality defenses when they've gone on the road. UCLA is not a quality defense, okay? I genuinely think Washington is going to be able to get everything it wants running the ball and passing the ball in this game. I don't see a UCLA path to victory. I don't even really think they get it. I don't even really think it's close. This is clearly a team that is overmatched in UCLA, in my opinion. I've been praising them because I thought they've done a good job after they fired their head coach, okay? But I have Washington 49, UCLA 14. Like, genuinely. I think Washington's going to be able to get everything they want and probably more in this game. I could go through the numbers, but the numbers are atrocious for UCLA in every single field, and the numbers are very good for Washington, especially the efficiency numbers. So, yeah, I just think that this is a blowout. Only two teams on the bye are, of course, Purdue and Indiana. They're going to play next week. We all know how that game is going to go, but there we go. Out of conference picks real quick here. I have SMU, Duke, Oklahoma, BYU, and Georgia Tech over Pittsburgh in that final game there. Those are my out of conference picks this week. And that is all that I have for you today. At this point, I'd like to remind you to like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and if you disagree with me at any point, or you just have something to say, go ahead and drop a comment down in the comment section below. Just remember to keep it civil. After all, what do I know? I'm just some asshole on the internet giving you his opinion. And now, with the outro done and out of the way, there's only one thing left to say, and that is that I'll see you next time.